Indian foreign policy, if I explain it in one word, is to get Pakistan beaten up by the Americans, by the NATO. That's the Indian policy now.
Yes.
Or you could say the Indians want to fight to the last American. You see? So basically what the Indians did was, post 9/11, India actually offered bases to the United States saying, Afghanistan is not the problem, Pakistan is the problem, we'll give you bases, let's come and join together and we'll all bomb Pakistan into Stone Age. So Pakistan, as I said, because of its nuclear potential, because of the ideology, and because of the fact that Pakistan and Israel both were ideological religious states, are natural adversaries and the prime target. Iran, on the other hand, is not a nuclear state yet. Pakistan is. So while the Israelis have been putting the pressure on the Americans and sometimes doing it themselves, trying to remove the nuclear potential of every Muslim country in the region, Iraq, Syria, Libya, and they're chasing Iran like mad right now, why would they remain silent on Pakistan?
Yes, exactly.
They're not. They're not silent on Pakistan.
Let me ask you this.
Pakistan is a nuclear. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Zaid, because I knew as soon as we went into Afghanistan and that these operations had expanded to start, these bombings, these drone attacks into Pakistan. I said the real aim here is that they want to get Pakistan's nuclear weapons. Okay. Now let me ask you this. How do they plan to do this? I mean, all conventional wisdom.
Got it, Mark. I'm coming to this now.
Okay.
You see,
go ahead.
Now to take out Pakistani nuclear plans, I'll take you back to Yugoslavia.
Okay.
You see, in Yugoslavia, the Americans, when they wanted to dismember Yugoslavia, they had two great advantages which the Americans and the NATO had. One advantage was that Yugoslavia was not a nuclear weapon state.
Okay.
So if you dismember Yugoslavia, there's no worry of nuclear weapons falling into somebody's hands. And second is that the American and the NATO supply line did not go through Yugoslavia. The Americans were based, their fleet was based in the Adriatic Sea or the different countries of Europe, and from there they could interfere into Yugoslavia without actually being dependent on the Yugoslavia theater of war itself. See? But in Pakistan, they have these two great disadvantages. Number one is Pakistan is a nuclear weapon state, so if you dismember Pakistan, who controls the nuclear weapon, that's become a greater crisis. And second is, the NATO supply line still goes through Pakistan into Afghanistan. So that means if the NATO supply in Pakistan is blocked, the entire NATO military operations in Afghanistan would come to a standstill. In fact, the Americans and the NATO would be butchered without fuel, without weapons, without ammunition, and then the Taliban would do with them what the Afghan Mujahideen did with the Soviets. So with this problem, Americans had a different game plan. For Pakistan, they did exactly what they did to the Yugoslavia as plan A. The plan A said, suppose they bring in a corrupt and incompetent government in Pakistan. You see, Musharraf was American ally.
Right.
Why did they have to replace Musharraf with Zardari? Because Musharraf still was a military man, and Pakistan military was very uncomfortable with this arrangement, what the Americans were doing in the region. Army had understood the American games something by 2005, 2006. And Army had put the pressure on Musharraf not to succumb to the Americans anymore. So Musharraf, despite the fact that Musharraf had practically given to the Americans since 2001 till 2006, but beyond that, there's not much he could do to please or appease the Americans. So that's where the Americans decided to replace him with even more corrupt and incompetent regime of People's Party. So that was the step one. Bring in political anarchy in Pakistan. So after the so-called democracy, they say you be good to Americans or they'll bring democracy to you. So Musharraf Pakistan was not good to the Americans, they brought in democracy to us. You see? And the government that was established in Pakistan and the various provinces, the governments were all incompetent, corrupt and separatists. And they were Pashtun sub-nationalist government came in Frontier province, who were already planning to dismember Pakistan, break away the province away from Pakistan. There was the terrorist outfit of NQM, which came into power in Karachi and Sindh. There were Balochistan separatists who came into power in Balochistan. And there was a corrupt, incompetent government which came into power in Islamabad. So basically, all the political players to bring about the Yugoslavia option were put into place as the first step.
I see.
The second step was creating the economic anarchy in Pakistan. So for that, massively, IMF and World Bank moved in with billions of dollars of loans with such strict conditions that the entire economy of Pakistan was crippled. Absolutely, the economy was literally sent to dogs. And there is absolutely no hope of recovery after the present regime, and the Pakistan has almost become economically a failed state. Now, the third step was to support insurgencies against the state and put the federal army in a collision course, just like they did the federal army in Yugoslavia against its provinces. And that is why the insurgency of Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan was supported from Afghanistan, and the Pakistan army had to fight a high-intensity war within its own borders.
I see.
And major areas of Pakistan were taken over by the insurgency, which was supported from Afghanistan. Let's be clear, one thing to you is that Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan are not part of Afghan Taliban. They are not part of Afghan resistance. Afghan resistance is not fighting against Pakistan. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is a CIA and RAW-created terrorist group which only fights against Pakistan. In the last 3 years, Tehreek-e-Taliban has done almost 900 suicide bombing, almost one every day, against Pakistan army and Pakistani civilians and Pakistani society. But not a single bombing against the Indian or the American interest in Afghanistan.
Amazing.
See, and so this Tehreek-e-Taliban, and while this Tehreek-e-Taliban was waging an insurgency against Pakistan, the massive global perception management propaganda warfare that Pakistani nuclear assets are about to fall into the wrong hands, and Americans should move in to secure them. That's how Americans wanted to take the Pakistani nuclear weapons away. To create anarchy, political and economic, and law and order, create massive insurgency and terrorism, and then when the army gets too collapsed and bogged in internal security operations, you move in under UN mandate or under the international mandate saying Pakistani nuclear weapons are not secure, and once they take away the Pakistani nuclear weapons, then they can move in with the bigger game of dismemberment of Pakistan, Greater Balochistan, separating the tribal areas. Again, the last leg of the deployment of the Yugoslavia option. And for that, if you note, when Obama came, because what Bush left, Obama had to pick up from there. And that is why Obama came, and the first person he appointed for Afghanistan and Pakistan was the man who specializes in breaking up countries, Mr. Richard Holbrooke.
Exactly, yes. Exactly. Well, let me ask you this, Zaid. The Americans and their Zionist handlers, they're taking a very big risk here in basically trying to break apart a country that is loaded, armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons. Why would they, how can they do this with any kind of confidence that Pakistan, at least her military, because as you have described here, you have a big gulf between the military that is very loyal to Pakistan and to Pakistan's national interests versus the political leaders such as Zardari and those before him. Why would the United States be willing to pick a fight like this? The Pakistanis, let's face it, if they're smart enough to build nuclear weapons, they're smart enough to figure out what is being done to their country. And so the United States is really gambling here, picking a fight like this with a country that is armed with nuclear weapons, any one of which could be, they don't even have to worry about loading it on a warhead and sending it into space and then into the continental United States. It could be loaded onto a boat and brought into an American harbor. So why would they be willing to take this? Let's face it, this is the biggest risk that the United States has ever engaged in.
Mark, I would like to quote a verse of Quran from here. And when the Quran talks about the bankers, Quran talks about the people who deal in interest-based transactions and who control the money lenders. Quran talks about them as the ones who are bedeviled by the devil's touch.
I see. So their evil intentions actually make them irrational and unable to think clearly.
This is exactly how Quran defines them. You talk about global warming, you talk about polluting the oceans, you talk about spreading the viruses and the pandemics. You talk about how they control the money supply and destroy the civilizations and the countries. Is this not being touched by the devil's touch?
Yes.
Is this not totally insane acts which these people are doing to the humanity and to the societies at large?
I see.
So, what they are doing is, Americans had counted on the Zardari government to deliver them in Pakistan military establishment. Even the WikiLeaks has confirmed this, but the first step which the Zardari government did after coming into power was they tried to take control of the Pakistani intelligence service, the ISI. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yes. And the army reacted to it, and then they had to back off. WikiLeaks has confirmed this now. But the point is, the Americans trusted Zardari to deliver them the Pakistani intelligence nuclear and the intelligence assets. That did not happen. Americans trusted the Indians. Americans gave a free hand to the Indians to operate from Afghanistan because Indians took the subcontract. Americans subcontracted the terrorism job to the Indians and saying that, okay, we created anarchy in Pakistan, and that's what the Indians said. Americans would make the global diplomatic environment, create the perception and the environment through media, and then the world bodies, UN, American, NATO would move in, pressurize Pakistan military to hand over the weapons to them. There was no way Americans could go in themselves and grab nuclear weapons from Pakistan. They know that there are hundreds of warheads spread all over the country, defended by fiercely loyal and patriotic soldiers and officers, and there's no way Americans can do it. Americans cannot put their boots on ground for the simple reason I told you. They are stuck in two wars, one in Iraq, one in Afghanistan. They have absolutely zero reserves left to fight another war against an Islamic nuclear-armed country, and their supply line goes through Pakistan. Pakistan army has recently shown its teeth to the Americans by blocking the NATO supply line. You remember that?
Yes.
And for the first time in 10 years, you saw the American ambassadors, the American generals down on their knees begging Pakistanis and apologizing. You know? And now when the Americans know that even if they want some kind of peace deal in Afghanistan with Taliban, some kind of power sharing arrangement, some kind of breakup of Afghanistan, they still need Pakistan to negotiate with the Afghan resistance. And what Pakistanis are doing now is, what Pakistan military is doing now is, while we are fighting the insurgency against us, Pakistan is not fighting a war against the Afghan resistance.
Right.
Because that's why the Americans want Pakistan army to wage operations in North Waziristan, tribal region. And that's where some Afghan networks are there. But Pakistan is not going against those regions simply because Pakistan knows that sooner or later Americans will leave this region, or they'll be forced to leave from this region. So why should Pakistan destroy its entire credibility, image, and relationship with the Afghan people? You can't change your neighbors. These people have to live in our neighborhood forever. You see? So, and the point is that Pakistan has today the capacity, means, capability to do with the Americans what we did with the Soviets. The entire Soviet war, I was part of it. Pakistan army was back. Pakistan intelligence agencies were backing the Afghan resistance totally. I went as a volunteer fighter with the resistance, but this entire war effort was backed by Pakistan army and Pakistan intelligence assets. We know Afghanistan like the back of our hand. It's our backyard. And we have defeated a superpower right into those mountains. And we can do it again. And the Americans know this now. So there is no way the American military can push Pakistan. And these are the major setbacks for the Zionist policy in the region. American supply lines are still under control of Pakistan. We can block them anytime we want. The major insurgencies which they had created in Pakistan have been beaten down, crushed. The back has been broken. Pakistan army has regained control of the entire region, where the insurgency has almost gone wild. And now Pakistan is aggressively in a position to dictate terms even to the Americans. And this is a dilemma for them. Now the entire American game in the Eurasian region is at a halt. They're a completely confused state. That's why you find McChrystal resigning. Because McChrystal was criticizing the political leadership simply because as a soldier he could see that he is stuck in an unwinnable war, while the politicians are pushing him for more casualties, more war, more bloodbath. Situation is... Yeah.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Zaid.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
If we could, no, I'd like you to finish up what you were just saying. I know you were coming to a conclusion there, and then I want to switch gears for just a moment and ask you about Iran. So please just go ahead and finish up your thought that you were about to make before I cut in.
So the point is, you see, in Pakistan right now, there is a massive uprising. There is a massive